Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I want to talk for a bit about the Golden State Warriors. They've had a really up and down season so far after last year making the second round of the playoffs before losing to the Lakers. They made a big trade in the offseason, picking up Chris Paul in exchange for Jordan Poole, who previously was supposed to be a big part of their future, but they instead went for the veteran point guard route, and they looked really good in the first few games of the season. They began 6-2, Steph Curry was going crazy, Chris Paul was looking great in his new role, and the team was kind of cooking. It seemed like the Golden State Warriors might once again be one of the better teams in the Western Conference. But then things kind of took a turn. They would then lose 6 straight games and hovered right around 500 for a majority of the season, up until they lost the Atlanta Hawks in overtime on February 3rd, in a game where Steph Curry had 60 points. They still found a way to lose, and that pushed them to 21-25 on the year, 4 games below 500, tying the worst record they had had all season. That game was a low point for the squad on the season, and one that kind of summarized the year up until that point. There were flashes of greatness like Steph Curry 60, and the fact that it seemed like at times the Warriors might have it wrapped up, but they had constantly failed to get the job done. In that game, Klay Thompson was bad, showcasing the struggles that he had been having all season. Wiggins was bad, also struggling a lot this year. You had some young guys stepping up. Steph did what he could, but ultimately just didn't give them enough to get over the finish line. It was a loss that further cemented them into the 12th seed in the Western Conference as well, a far cry from the top 5 to 6 team in the West that a lot of people thought they could be this season. Following that loss, I feel like most people just kind of gave up on the Warriors. I remember scrolling through Twitter that night, and people were basically saying, if Steph can drop 60 points and they still can't beat the Hawks, who can they realistically beat on a night-to-night basis? It was a real low point in a season of constant disappointment for Golden State, and it seemed like this was the beginning of the end for this team. But since that moment, they have seemingly flipped a little bit of a switch. They went on to win their next 5 games following that loss, and have won 8 out of their 10 games since they played Atlanta, moving to 29-27, having them firmly in the play-in at the 10 spot. They're now 3 games ahead of the Jazz behind them, and just 0.5 games behind the Lakers in the 9 spot. It's still not really where they wanted to be going to the season, but it's way better than they were at that Atlanta point and where they've been for a majority of the year. Additionally, over these last 10 games, the Warriors have the 7th best offense in the league, the 5th best defense, and the 6th best net rating, which is very impressive. They have leveled it up on all sides of the ball. Steph Curry in particular has had some ridiculous performances over this stretch, including a 4-game stretch where he hit 7+ threes every single game. The first time that anyone has had such a stretch ever in the history of the sport. Nobody has had 7 or more threes in 4 straight games until Steph Curry just did it. So he's still finding ways to break records that I thought he would have set by this point later on in his career. Wiggins has been more consistent, giving the Warriors 14 points per game on 50, 40, 90 splits over these last 10. Jonathan Kuminga has continued to play really well, although the 3-point shot has struggled quite a bit as of late. He's still giving them really consistent overall offense and some really good defense, as well as much needed athleticism in that front court. Draymond Green has been fantastic, has really refound his groove after coming back from his suspension, and he's played really well as an offensive connector, hitting 44% of his threes on the season, which is ridiculous, and of course playing his elite usual level defense. Brandon Podziemski has forced his way into the starting lineup by playing really well as a rookie, and continues to solidify his spot in this team's future as a great shot maker, shot creator, and a guy that gives them a lot of hustle. GP2 has played really well since returning from injury, and is giving the Dubs really solid but somewhat limited offense, and of course his usual fantastic defense. Even Lester Quinones, who is a two-way player coming into the season, found a way to earn himself a full-time NBA contract with high-level play, and has solidified himself a spot in this rotation. You're also getting some solid play from Klay Thompson every other night. Kevon Looney's giving you some solid minutes. They're getting contributions from a ton of guys across the rotation, and it's helped them get back to their winning ways. This has led to a lot of people saying that the Golden State Warriors are back, and that they could be a nightmare matchup for some team in the first round if they make it out of the play-in, and some people are even saying that they still have this Warriors squad as a dark horse Western Conference Finals or even NBA Finals team because of the experience they have, having Steph Curry, of course, as one of the best players of all time, still one of the best players in the world. They've shown an ability to step it up in the playoffs in the past, and they're looking really solid on both ends as of late, putting it together at the right time, as well as having Chris Paul's return on the horizon when he comes back. If the Warriors continue to play as well as they have on both sides of the ball, yeah, this Warriors team could be really scary in a first round, especially again with that ridiculous amount of experience that they have, potentially going up against against some more unexperienced teams that are sitting up towards the top of the Western Conference. So I agree. I think they're looking a lot scarier as of late and could be a potential challenge in the first round for a top team. But there are still a number of things about the Dubs that give me a lot of pause and make me think that there's still a first round exit if they even make it out of the play-in in general. One of the biggest ones is that Klay Thompson is still wildly inconsistent. We don't know what version of Klay we're getting on any given night. Recently, he got moved to the bench and he's been in that role for the past few games, went off in his first game off the bench with 35 points and 7 threes, but hasn't had any crazy performances since. He did have 23 points in the first half against the Denver Nuggets, including 5 threes, but nothing after that. Didn't score a single point following, and in his last 9 games, it's been a very up and down trajectory. 8 points, 18 points, 5 points, 26 points, 12 points, 35 points, 3 points, 13 points, 23 points. Basically, you've got no idea what Klay Thompson you're going to get on a night-to-night basis, and the defense is not there anymore, so you need that offensive consistency, and if he can't be your consistent second scoring option, who can be? If you're trying to go on a deep playoff run, you need somebody else other than Steph to carry your offense. You could just try and do it by committee, like maybe Kuminga has a night, Podziemski has a night, Wiggins steps up, Draymond has a night here and there, Klay Thompson returns to form. Like, it's possible to do it in a committee type of way, but I still think you need a consistent second guy to make any type of sustained run against this stacked Western Conference. And I really don't trust anybody on this roster at the moment to do that. You know, Podziemski and Kuminga have been great, but they're really young and haven't been in that role in a playoff environment before, and it's not been like a role they've been consistently in this season, so they're not used to that. Wiggins has been better, but definitely hasn't been a number 2 option level player. I just don't know who's consistently giving you offense behind Steph Curry in a lot of those tough matchups. Additionally, they haven't exactly been playing the best competition over this hot streak. Now, you can only play who's on your schedule, and they have blown out a lot of these teams, which is a good sign, but it hasn't been enough to convince me that this team is fully back. The teams that they've beaten are the Nets, the Sixers without Joel Embiid, the Pacers, the Suns, the Jazz twice, the Lakers without LeBron, and the Charlotte Hornets. There's definitely some good wins in there, like Indiana and against the Suns in particular, but they failed to beat the great teams on their schedule, both in this stretch and really all season. Over these 10 games, they lost to the Clippers by 5 and the Nuggets by 16, both at home. The Clippers' loss was close, and this is a great Clippers team, so even a close loss to them is pretty promising, but it's harder to stomach when you consider the fact that they led by 15 points in the second quarter and even had a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter with about 9 minutes to go before completely collapsing, giving up a 17-2 run and giving the Clippers a lead that they would end up holding on to. So they had a chance to win, but just completely fell apart. And it was kind of similar in the Nuggets game, where in the first half they were tied due to mainly a big first half performance again from Klay Thompson, who did have 23 points in the first half, but they fell apart down the stretch. Steph Curry was really bad, shooting just 6 of 19 on the game, and the Nuggets eviscerated them in the fourth quarter, particularly due to Nikola Jokic putting up 32 points, 16 rebounds, 16 assists, 4 steals, and 1 block. It was a masterclass from him, who just abused the lack of size that the Warriors have, and this is the problem that they're continuing to face over the course of these games. Now, it's fine to lose to these teams at times. You're never going to beat every single championship contender you face in a season, but these are the squads they're likely going to have to face off against if they want to make a deep playoff run like a lot of people think they still can. And if you take a look at the season as a whole, it's been a theme for them that they just can't beat the better squads. They're 17-3 this year against teams below 500 and just 12-24 against any team above 500. That's the same number of wins against above 500 teams as the Memphis Grizzlies this season, and less than the Houston Rockets and Utah Jazz, as well as every other team in the West, not named the Portland Trailblazers or the San Antonio Spurs. That's really concerning, especially when you consider the fact that they're 2-12 this year against the top 4 teams in the West, again, one of whom they're probably going to have to play in that first round matchup. The last one against one of these teams came all the way back on November 30th, which was about 3 months ago at this point. Not to mention, they've got to make it out of the play-in in the first place, which is going to be tough in its own right. The Lakers are a really tough team to face. They've shown an ability to elevate at times, still with LeBron and AD, and they've got a lot of that size that has given the Warriors some problems. Even if you win that game, you'll have to play one of the Suns, Pelicans, Kings, or Mavericks in that second play-in game, all of whom are really good teams, and they'll have home court advantage. They could try and push their way out of the play-in throughout the rest of the regular season and be just a playoff team, which avoids this entirely, but the teams ahead of them are playing really well, and making it up 3.5 games isn't going to be easy. I mean, the Dallas Mavericks just won a 7-game win streak, and they're still the 8th seed in the Western Conference. So this is the conundrum with the Golden State Warriors. On one hand, they've been one of the best teams in the league over the past 10 games. They're really finding their stride when they need to, and they're annihilating teams that they probably should beat. They still have Steph Curry, who is one of the best players in the world, Draymond Green, who's an elite defender and really connects rejects everything they do offensively back. You've got Steve Kerr, who has coached this team to championships a number of times. Klay Thompson, who's struggling so far, but we've seen him elevate his game in the playoffs. This whole team really has done that on a consistent basis. Young players are stepping up. You've got a ridiculous amount of experience, more than any other team in the league, and a Chris Paul return is seemingly on the horizon. But on the other hand, over the course of the full season, they haven't shown really any consistency whatsoever. Klay Thompson, while he does have that experience, is an absolute wild card at this point in his career, and they've got a really tough road ahead of them against teams that they haven't really shown they can beat. If they want to make it into the playoffs and make any type of noise, they're going to have to beat the squads that they've really struggled against the rest of this season. So I do see why some people are saying, oh, the Warriors are back, but I'm not quite there yet. As great as Steph Curry is, I think the supporting cast around him has kind of fallen behind, and they're just not as good as some of the better teams in the West at this point. They do have an opportunity to prove me wrong. They play against the Celtics on March 3rd, Bucks on March 6th, Dallas on March 13th, the Knicks, who may be healthier at that point, on March 18th, and the Wolves on March 24th. So they have some prove-it games against the great teams in the NBA amongst the easier schedule that they have, if they want to show that, hey, we're more than just a team that beats up on the bottom feeders. If they can make up some ground in the standings, they give themselves a better chance. If they can beat some of those top teams, maybe they'll convince me more. I'm just not sold quite yet. I need to see more from the Warriors against the better teams in the league before I officially say that the Golden State Warriors are actually back. But who knows? Maybe the Warriors are finding the rhythm at the right time, and like the Lakers and Heat last year, they're the next playing team that can go ahead and go on a deep run, one that not a lot of people are actually expecting. We'll have to wait and see, but for right now, I appreciate y'all watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Let me know what you think about the Golden State Warriors down below in the comments. Do you think they're back? Do you think the team is still just a first-round exit, maybe a play-in exit that's showcasing some of the stuff they've done in the past, but they're not actually good enough to make a deep run? Would love to hear your thoughts as usual. I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.